Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, I want you to picture a project so massive, it honestly defies imagination. We are talking about a staggering 1.5 lakh crore rupee mega project that is currently being built in one of the absolute most hostile, unforgiving environments on the entire planet, the Kutch Desert. We're going to explore how this isn't just some traditional structure sitting in the sand, it's actually a sprawling chessboard of microstructures that are actively predicting the future of an entire nation. Let's get right into it. First, try holding your breath for just a few seconds. You feel that immediate panic kicking in? That's because your body relies on ATP, which is basically your internal energy currency, just to survive. So what is a country's most valuable asset? A lot of people would say it's money, or maybe data, or healthcare. But without the ability to essentially breathe, a nation's systems just go completely dead. So let's dive right into this. Money? Well, money is really just an accounting system. Energy, on the other hand, is the ultimate true currency of our entire civilization. It is literally the only thing that transforms raw materials into a functioning society. Think about it. Iron ore becomes steel, code becomes an app, an idea becomes a factory, and that factory becomes GDP. You watching this explainer right now? That takes energy. Swiping your credit card at the store. Energy. To really grasp what happens when that currency just dries up, we have to look back at the horrifying events of July 30th, 2012. 600 million people across 22 states in India suddenly lost power in what became the worst blackout in human history. 400 trains just froze on their tracks. The Delhi metro shut down entirely. Hospitals were desperately forced onto emergency generators. And terrifyingly, over 200 miners were trapped 700 meters underground in extreme heat and pitch darkness, slowly suffocating without ventilation. Just one flip switch, and a nation effectively dies.
So here's our map for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. Energy as true currency. 2. India's fragmented fuel problem. 3. The impossible desert challenge. 4. Anatomy of an organism. And 5. Building the energy DNA.
Kicking things off with part 1, energy as true currency. If you look at history, pretty much every superpower, whether it's the UK with coal or the US with oil, was built by locking down their energy sources first. Empires really only scale after their energy is secured. Now, back in the 17th century, India was incredibly wealthy, but they focused almost all their trading on textiles and spices. Meanwhile, the West was heavily investing in coal and industrial energy. And because of this one fatal misstep, India's share of global industrial output absolutely plummeted from 25% down to a mere 2% by the year 1900, while the UK's just skyrocketed. Which brings us to part 2, India's fragmented fuel problem. Fast forward to today, right? India has grown into the world's third largest energy consumer. But here's the catch. They face this crippling existential problem of extreme dependence on foreign nations. It is a completely fragmented nightmare. Listen to these numbers. India's transportation runs on oil, which is 89% imported. Cooking relies on LPG, 60% imported. Industries run on natural gas, 50% imported. And power plants run on coal, 23% imported. They are writing massive checks every single year to multiple different nations just to keep the lights on. And if you were dependent on 4 completely different, vulnerable supply chains, true energy independence is essentially impossible. So how exactly do they plan to fix this? Well, under the Paris Agreement, India made a genuinely massive pledge. By 2030, half, yes, 50% of their total power capacity has to come from non-fossil sources. That is a gigantic promise for a rapidly developing nation where citizens are buying more phones, electric cars, and AC units every single day. How on earth can a nation pull this off without a monumental shift in reliable infrastructure? Now for part 3, the impossible desert challenge. The proposed solution actually takes us to one of the most hostile places on the planet. Now, building massive solar farms, not exactly a new idea, but it is a notoriously dangerous one. Multi-billion-dollar megaprojects in the American Mojave Desert and the African Sahara ultimately failed or at best severely underperformed due to harsh weather and completely unmanageable dust. Now, contrast that with the Kutch Desert. It is an impossibly flat, salty wasteland where temperatures routinely soar past 50 degrees Celsius. The soil is loose, it's salty, it's highly corrosive. It's literally a place where not even a cell phone signal can survive. Yet despite all those odds, this is exactly where the Adani Group is building the Khavda Renewable Energy Park. And guys, the scale of this thing is just monumental. We're talking about a 1.5 lakh crore rupee investment. It's a facility 5 times the size of the city of Paris. It's going to house 6 crore, that is 60 million solar panels, and aim for a 30 gigawatt energy target. To put that into perspective for you, this single patch of desert is going to produce enough energy to power entire countries like Switzerland or Belgium. Mind-blowing, right? All right, let's move to part 4, anatomy of an organism. So how do you actually survive in a place where so many others have failed? Well, you don't use traditional engineering. You use biological logic. True survival engineering doesn't try to fight nature. It mimics a living organism. Think of these solar panels as the organism's skin. But these aren't your normal static panels. They are double-faced, which allows them to absorb 30% more heat by capturing the light that literally reflects off the ground. And just like a sunflower naturally tilts toward the sun, algorithmic hinges on these panels actively track the sun 180 degrees across the sky. They don't just wait around for sunlight. They actively hunt for it.
Next up is the immune system. Out in the desert, dust is basically a deadly virus. Literally just a 1 millimeter layer of dust can drop panel efficiency by 30%. At this scale, that would mean blackouts for entire cities. But washing them with water in a completely dry salt desert, that would waste 1,700 million liters of water a year. So instead, the immune system uses waterless, self-charging robotic cleaners that constantly sweep the panels. They fight off the dust virus continuously without wasting a single drop of water.
Of course, to stand upright in this kind of hostile environment, our organism needs some incredibly strong bones. The soil in the Kutch Desert is really loose and super salty, which would easily eat normal steel alive. So engineers actually drilled deep stone columns to act as a solid, load-bearing foundation, and then wrap the steel in heavily corrosion-resistant materials. This robust exoskeleton is what keeps the massive structure firmly anchored against those super aggressive desert winds.
Now, let's look at the brain of the operation, because this is where it gets really sci-fi. At the dead center of Kavda is this AI-powered control room. But it doesn't just monitor what's happening right now. In energy management, reacting to a problem in the present means you're already too late. This AI brain constantly processes satellite imagery, wind speeds, and weather forecasts to predict the plant's exact power output 15 minutes into the future. It literally lives in the future just to make sure India's present grid remains perfectly stable. Finally, the organism needs a stomach and arteries. You see, solar energy's biggest weakness is obviously the night. So the stomach relies on massive battery storage and 770 colossal wind turbines that kick in when the sun goes down, digesting power around the clock. Then the arteries, which are these giant 4,500 MVA substations and sprawling transmission lines, pump this stabilized energy out of the desert and straight into the hospitals, homes, and factories of India's interior. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, Building the Energy DNA. Look, all of this engineering is phenomenal. But generating this massive amount of power means absolutely nothing if India doesn't control the organism's DNA itself. If the solar cells, the machines, and the wafers are all just imported from outside, then this isn't real energy independence at all. To truly own this ecosystem, the Adani Mundra facility is closing the entire supply chain loop right there at home. Check this out. In 2021, India only manufactured 8 gigawatts of solar modules. By 2025, that jumps to a staggering 144 gigawatts. They are making the silicon ingots, the wafers, the cells, and even the massive wind turbines right there in Gujarat. Because of this move, their solar imports have practically been cut in half in just a single year. And controlling that supply chain, that creates something truly magical. Because true innovation isn't just coming up with a genius idea once. It's about having a fast feedback loop. When you manufacture every piece of the puzzle yourself, you can take an idea, put it into action, gather the data in real time, and immediately churn out a much better next version. Taking control of this DNA is exactly what turns India from a simple assembler of foreign parts into a master innovator of global energy tech. So Kavda really isn't just about planting 60 million solar panels in a wasteland. It is a colossal, civilization-level gamble. By copying the brilliant logic of nature and controlling the manufacturing DNA from start to finish, we really have to ask, is this extreme desert organism the true key to unlocking India's total energy independence? It's definitely a fascinating thought to leave you with today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.